Just like to talk a little bit today about a very interesting take from Isabel Wilkerson's book Caste about President Barack Obama. Um, when he was elected, there was a lot of enthusiasm. There was a lot of thought that we're at a new day in the history of America, and prejudice is now over. That amazing barrier of a black person being elected president. It was thought that this was impossible. It was never going to happen in America. Now it's happened, and there was an excitement. There was a thought that maybe we've turned a corner, and maybe there's a new day that's going to happen in America. And in some respects, certainly that happened. But for many people, that was not the case. For many people, the election of a black president was like, oh my goodness, a nightmare, as Isabel Wilkerson points out. And it was a nightmare really that had to be resisted because the whole caste system was now upended. This doesn't happen in the caste that the person from the lower caste would now be ruling over everybody else. This is not right. So, we've got to resist this. We've got to undermine this in some way. You can't have a black person as president. This is not right. So the caste system kind of sprung into action to try to get things back to the way they really should be. An example of that Isabel Wilkerson points out in her book is the encounter between President Obama and the governor at that time of Arizona, Jan Brewer. And it was very interesting. She put down President Obama, and she felt that she could do that in a way because she was kind of from the dominant caste, and he was from the lower caste, and so hey, I can really do that. Normally, we have a great sense of respect for the president, and really for the office of the presidency. But she really didn't show that. And as a governor, certainly you want to work with the president. And again, an example of really resisting this change that had happened in America. And she denied that she had really done anything when it was obvious that she did. And she tried to blame President Obama for it. And he said, well, wait a minute, you're the one who insulted him. How can you blame him for that? It just, of course, did not make sense. And the Tea Party was formed then with the specific mantra, we have to take our country back. Our country has been taken away from us. Now is the time to, let's take our country back. Between 2014 and 2016, states deleted almost 6 million people from voter registration lists. And you look at something like this and say, well, why are they deleting all these voters? What's happening here? The Brennan Center for Justice kind of takes a look at these types of things and pointed this statistic out, and said, well, why are so many? You can see a certain number of voters being deleted, people that have moved, people that are deceased, but 6 million people, that's a lot. And the more that the minority turnout, increased, the more likely was the state enacting voter restriction laws. So here you have, minorities voting, and you're like, well, we've got to change the law a little bit, make it harder for people to vote. And you're like, well, isn't the whole point to make it easy and convenient for people to vote? Don't you want more people to vote? Why all these restrictions on voting? In terms of restricting hours, restricting absentee balloting, restricting, voters that could, vote early in the process, giving days off. making lines shorter rather than longer. I mean, it's you kind of say, well, wait a minute, what's that about? You know, um, and the number of hate groups increased dramatically during this time. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a report on March 4th, 2013, noted, oh, look at this, all these hate groups now are starting to come out of the woodwork. So again, this change, this new day that was dawning for America, a black president, now there's again a backlash against that, which I guess you have to expect because certain people don't like to see that type of change and resist it. And so they actively try to work, against it. It's interesting that in surveys they found that anti-black attitudes rose from 48 to 51%, implicit bias from 49 to 56%, and a higher percentage of Americans now saw blacks as violent, irresponsible, and most especially lazy. You have someone achieving this high office, and you say, well, the black, they're lazy. And you're like, well, wait a minute, it seems to be a contradiction. But again, this is what we saw, and partly, Wilkerson points out, certainly a contributing factor is the fact that you have elected now a black president. One of the things that really caused a lot of concern in this time period too is that police were killing blacks at 5 times the rate of killing whites. And we see this in the statistics from mapping police violence. The rate was 1 in 1,000 young black men and boys and was a leading cause of death. So this became an alarming thing that people were saying, well, wait a minute, is something out of whack here? Why is it that so many young blacks are being killed? Why is it that there is so much of a sense that there's an injustice here? Let's look at this and see what's going on. Of course, recently we've seen with that seems to be continuing, certainly a cause of great alarm for everyone. Now, in terms of what Obama was able to accomplish, he accomplished much on issues that were of concern to all Americans, like health care. Certainly that was a major focus of his presidency, and early on he wanted to get a better health care for all Americans and have more coverage for more people. Climate change, certainly in the environmental area, that was a major concern that President Obama undertook. After he won a re-election in 2012, there were some who were even more shocked. I mean, it was in 2008. Well, maybe that was a fluke, but then he's reelected in 2012, and very interesting, the conservative commentator recently, unfortunately, passed away, Rush Limbaugh, said, I went to bed last night thinking we're outnumbered. I went to bed last night thinking we've lost the country. I don't know how else you look at this. So there was a sense from him that, this country now is going in a different direction. And why is that? Because a black man was not only elected president, he was reelected president. So 2 times. And the thought would be, well, what's happening in our country? Why is this trend continuing? It was an interesting case, really tragic in many ways and very unfortunate, of Henry Hamilton. Henry lived in Key West, Florida, and he told his friends that if Obama won and if he was reelected, he would take his life. Fortunately, Obama did, win, and unfortunately, he did take his life. And you kind of say to yourself, well, wait, why would you take your life? Because someone was elected president. I mean, it seems kind of crazy. It seems like something's out of whack there. But again, what does this show? It shows a deep sense that this country is changing and attitudes are changing. This caste system is being dismantled. Uh, there are more opportunities for more people, which is, obviously a great thing, something that we celebrate. But again, against it, there's a feeling on the part of, some people that not a good thing. This type of change. Now, the Trump presidency comes after the Obama presidency, and um, Wilkerson points out the idea of what we call racialized economics. What is this, racialized economics? How does race figure into economics? Well, it's a belief that the undeserving groups are getting ahead, while your group is being left behind. So you see now the black people are electing, a president who seem to be getting more ahead of us as whites, and this isn't good, and they're undeserving. Why are they getting ahead? We're much more deserving. We're being left behind. Again, there's that sense, that tension in what we call racialized economics, factoring in this factor of race into it. And so white people are trying to reassert a racial order with their group at the top. The idea that, we're white, we are more deserving. We should be at the top. This other group, the blacks, the minorities, they should kind of know their place. They should be at the bottom. President Trump, for example, won 58% of the white vote compared to 37% for Clinton. So again, it shows that there's this feeling that we're being damaged by these changes. So we have to kind of go maybe in a different direction. And Wilkerson makes an interesting assertion in her book, and it's worth kind of reflecting about and thinking about it, I believe. She says the Republican Party very much caters to its base, which is the evangelical vote, and they're very aware of their base. They work with their base. She says, on the other hand, the Democratic Party, she doesn't feel, advocates for its base strongly enough, and the base being African Americans. And it's like, sometimes that part of the party is taken for granted. So Wilkerson says, you've got to take a look at this and say, what is fair? What is just? If your base is supporting you, shouldn't you be advocating for them and for their rights? So some interesting reflections for us to think about in terms of, many people thinking, well, this is great. We have a black man as president. This is wonderful. This is great. But some of the implications of that, as you work them out, in terms of a resistance to that, the fact that some people felt this was wrong, they were upset by this. So in our present situation, we have to look and say, well, what are some of the effects of this, and how do we process them? And how do we going forward, make sure that there is the sense of justice for all, and that everyone is included? You certainly don't want anybody who is white left out. You don't want anybody who's black left. You want everyone included together. And so this is, the direction we want to